Hello everyone, I'm GarethTheGamer and welcome to something a little bit different because today I'm going to be giving my thoughts about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 after around 10 hours of playtime. Why 10 hours you might be wondering? Well, seeing as Bloodlines 2 released on October 21st and I didn't really have the time to play through the entire game multiple times to do a comprehensive video covering all aspects of the game, I thought the next best thing was to cut out a lot of the bulk that usually ends up in a GarethTheGamer video, the plot and story spoilers. Therefore, while there may be spoilers to certain events that happen in Bloodlines 2, I'll try to stick to my thoughts about the game as best I can. 10 hours is just an arbitrary value I came up with which should allow me to understand what the game is about and experience it enough to provide some justified opinions. I know it's been a while since I've done a video for this channel and I hope to change that soon, even if it means doing more videos like this. So, what is there to say about this game? Well, let me provide some context before getting into my opinions. Now, I first heard about Bloodlines 2 when the whole Tender ARG happened, if any of you remember that. If you need a refresher or are uninitiated, then you can check out this amazing video by Nightmind. It's how I even knew about this whole thing in the first place. Essentially, the ARG was an elaborate setup for a reveal trailer for Bloodlines 2, which happened back in 2019, with the game scheduled to release in 2020. However, it seems as if the development of Bloodlines 2 has experienced some hiccups since this announcement was made, eventually being delayed indefinitely in 2021. This didn't mean the game was cancelled though, because in 2023, a couple of screenshots were released and the developer of Bloodlines 2 was revealed. The Chinese Room, most known for their work on games like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and Still Wakes the Deep. Of course, the release date was pushed back and back from late 2024 to early 2025 to now, which is late 2025. One final thing, if you haven't played or heard about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 1, I've done a video on the channel already as a Halloween special for 2022. I think I even played Bloodlines 1 after hearing about Bloodlines 2's announcement and wanted to know what it was all about, but also to avoid being in a situation where, for example, a reference is made and I don't know the context. It feels good to be covering the sequel for Halloween, even if this video isn't going to be as in-depth as the one I did regarding Bloodlines 1. Alright, with all of that out of the way, let's get started. I guess the best place to start is, well, the start of the game. You play as an elder vampire going by the name Fire, stylized with a PH, but for some unknown reason you have the voice of someone going by the name Fabian in your head. This gets explained later and is kinda teased in the trailer, so I'll tell you what happened. Fabian is, or rather was, a detective who is investigating a case, the case of the Rebar Killer. It's pretty graphic, so I'm not going to be showing why the killer got that name. He ended up going into a warehouse where Fire was stored, lying in torpor, which is a sort of hibernation state for vampires. Then Fire wakes up and attacks the first thing that they lay their eyes on, which just so happens to be Fabian, and that's how he ended up in your head. Not typical vampiric behaviour. It might also help to know that Fabian was from the Malkavian bloodline, with Malkavians being known for their craziness. So yeah, that's who we are playing as. The starting area of the game is a tutorial providing the basics for movement and combat, usual stuff. Unlike other games in the Vampire the Masquerade universe though, you have access to a whole range of skills from the get-go, like vampiric insight, gliding, wall climbing, dodging, and telekinesis. Just don't accidentally use telekinesis on this guy or you'll fail before you even have the chance to begin. When you complete the tutorial, you get this nice establishing shot of Seattle and you can then begin the game for real. This includes choosing a clan, which affects the main ability you get to use throughout the game. One thing to note is that I've never heard of the Banhu Hakim faction before, but after taking a look at the description, I think they're similar to the Assamite clan. This is the clan I ended up choosing for my first playthrough, which means my main ability was Silence of Death, where all of my actions would be silent for a time after feeding. There's plenty of ways to customise Fire as well, with stuff like eye and hair colour, eyewear, piercings, and even outfits when certain abilities are unlocked. I must say, this is better than what is in Bloodlines 1 because there, the character's appearance is purely dependent on the clan and gender choice. Having the opportunity to customise fire in the ways that Bloodlines 2 allows is an improvement in my opinion. So let's get into the stuff that I like and dislike about Bloodlines 2. Now, let me get the negatives out of the way first. I honestly feel like the combat in this game is a bit of a downgrade compared to Bloodlines 1. Recall that in Bloodlines 1, yeah, you can use your fists, but you also get access to a variety of short-range weapons and also guns, with the potential to invest in those particular skills if that's the playstyle you want to roll with. However, in Bloodlines 2, you pretty much only use your fists in every situation where fighting is involved. The thing is, you actually can use guns and other melee items in combat, but only via the usage of telekinesis. This makes things more awkward than they need to be. I sometimes pressed one of the buttons used to activate buffs accidentally, which just wastes the buff, all because these action buttons are scrunched together on the keyboard. Buffs are found in bottles that are rare to find, and they give you various enhancements like health restoration, increased melee damage, invulnerability, and an immediate recharge of your vampiric abilities. The game tries to tell you that you shouldn't forget to use your abilities, as this is what makes you an elder vampire. You unlock said abilities by earning XP and skill points that are earned when completing missions or finding hidden markings throughout the city. You can unlock abilities for the other playable clans as well, but that requires blood from humans and achieving a resonance event. Basically, certain NPCs in the world will randomly show up with a coloured symbol and you need to either anger, seduce or intimidate them to achieve full resonance. Then you feed on them and earn specialised blood points in either the sanguine, choleric or melancholic categories. I never really made use of this mechanic during my playtime because the NPCs you need to feed on are in broad daylight, or should I say broad nightlight, and it makes it difficult to uphold the Masquerade. You know, the code of conduct that all vampires should follow as to keep humans unaware of the very existence of vampires. It's not like you can talk to them or lure them into a dark alleyway or anything, or if there is, then I never noticed it. As I just brought up the Masquerade, let's talk about how it works in Bloodlines 2. There's an eye indicator at the top of the screen which shows you if someone has a line of sight to you. If you perform a vampiric activity like wall climbing, falling off a building from a great height or executing someone, then you'll raise suspicion. This will result in a Masquerade breach, which is bad. I tried my best to avoid Masquerade breaches at all costs, so I don't know how to get rid of them or if it's like the strike system that existed back in Bloodlines 1. I like how the game tells you about this stuff, then like 5 minutes later I jump off a building into the middle of the road without a care in the world. Thankfully I wasn't punished for this, but I blame the game for making the trail go there. Something that I forgot to script in the video was another mechanic that I didn't really enjoy: stealth. Yeah, I finished writing and recording the script only to realise that I totally omitted the stealth aspects of this game. Keep in mind that I'm playing with a more stealth oriented build, so I don't know how well this plays with some of the other clans. From what I played, it seems as if stealth will only get you so far. Like, there's a mission that requires you to locate the sheriff, Benny, who has been captured and is deep in Anarch territory. You can sleuth around if you want to, or go in all guns blazing, but look at the situation here. I need to head towards the front door, but there's two guys looking at each other. I literally cannot get to the door without one of them spotting me and causing mayhem. If you progress to where you need to go to early, the path forward is blocked, so you inevitably have to get spotted and fight. Progressing into the building's interior poses a similar problem. The path forward is blocked by enemies you cannot get around. I think every situation where you might want to use stealth runs into this problem eventually. You just can't proceed without getting into combat. This raises a question in my mind. Why have stealth if you can't even use it properly? Perhaps I'm missing something, but from my experience, this mechanic sucked. Actually, in retrospect, perhaps I should have made more use of one of the clan abilities, Unseen Aura, which allows fire to go invisible. That would have been useful to me, but I can't time travel, so... Oh, I'll talk more about the clan abilities later. Overall, I don't think the stealth in Bloodlines 2 is as good as it was in Bloodlines 1, which is a shame. Another thing that can be quite annoying is the fact that you wander around a lot in this game. Like, I don't even want to know how much of my 10-hour playtime was spent walking up and down the streets of Seattle. It wouldn't be so bad if there was a fast travel system or an alternate means to get from point A to point B, but it doesn't look like there is. When you complete the main story missions for a night, you can rest until the next night, and during this rest period, you have the chance to take a stroll down memory lane with Fabian, reliving moments from his past. The city traversal isn't so bad during these flashbacks, because you can speed up Fabian's movement quite drastically without any risk of violating the Masquerade, but it can still be a hassle to get around. Like, take this example, I go to Riva Tower, the home of the Camarilla in Seattle, and talk to the prince. Or at least someone who is the prince when Fire is the active playable character. But that doesn't really help progress the plot, so we have to go to the police station on the other side of town. So we go there, speak to this girl, and she tells us to go to the Atrium nightclub, which is right next to Riva Tower on the other side of town again. So now you have to backtrack to where you just came from, which is like half a kilometre away. The point I'm trying to make is that it sucks to have to waste so much time walking the streets like this. At least in Bloodlines 1, the maps weren't that large, so any backtracking you had to do wouldn't waste too much time. Plus, there's a fast travel system using this taxi driver that takes you to and from different hub areas. Bloodlines 2 feels like all of the hub areas from Bloodlines 1 are squashed together into one large map, minus the taxi driver to lessen the travel time. In my opinion, this is a bit of a downgrade. Speaking of Riva Tower, the interior reminds me of the Camarilla headquarters from Swansong. Before moving on to the next thing, I at least want to credit the game for telling you that any and all side missions will fail if you choose to rest up for the night without completing them. At least the developers had the courtesy to tell you this without you finding out the hard way. So, if the traversal of the city can be annoying at times, what about the environment you actually see when you explore Seattle? Well, it's Christmas time and the nights are cold and the streets are covered in snow. And to be honest, I like the way this looks. The graphics are great, like the way the snowy streets look, the misty air and the lighting. However, I'm playing on PC with less than ideal specs that are needed to run this game, so there are moments of lag, but it's not too bad while I played with the high preset graphics option. Plus, the interiors are well designed too, ranging from luxurious hotel foyers to underground bars to abandoned buildings. I think it's all nice to look at. Does this mean I think the graphics are perfect? No, I did see this glitchy texture and there are times where the higher detail materials takes time to load in, but I like the way this game looks overall. I honestly think the graphical fidelity of Bloodlines 2 is better than Bloodlines 1, with the only reason being that Bloodlines 1 is over 20 years old now, and the texture quality that was standard back then wasn't like what it is nowadays. I think Bloodlines 1 still holds up nicely, that's why the Source engine is so underrated. I only experienced one game crash which actually required me to restart my computer, however I wouldn't chalk that up to the game. I guess the only thing that's missing for me is ray tracing, but I'm not going to be too fussy. Does it really matter to see the street signs accurately reflected in the wet streets? Yeah, I don't think so. On the topic of graphics, I think another important aspect that I think Bloodlines 2 doesn't do quite as well as Bloodlines 1 is atmosphere. Like, there are quite a few creepy memorable locations from Bloodlines 1, however I don't really remember any parts of Bloodlines 2 being all that spooky. I mean, the section with the Atrium nightclub and the descent into a hallucination is cool and are probably the highlights of the game, at least from what I was able to experience with the limited playtime. But there's no haunted houses, no underground tunnels to get lost in, or other supernatural horrors to be wary of. I know I'm bringing up Bloodlines 1 a lot, so I'll try to keep any references to that from here on out to a minimum. Now, this is going to be a minor nitpick, but another thing I'm not a fan of is how you're only allowed to have one side quest active at any time. Actually no, only one mission active at any one time. The way Bloodlines 2 works is that once you choose a mission to complete, you're locked into that mission until it is completed. You can't even begin different side quests or progress the main story since you're stuck with that mission. It's not like you can go around town and accumulate a bunch of stuff to do. As I wanted to play as much of the game as possible in the 10 hours I allowed myself to play in order to make this video, the side quests were something I wanted to experience. Of course, the fact that you have to go through every mission one at a time is a definite downgrade when compared to the way quests worked in Bloodlines 1. Don't let this criticism fool you, as I at least found the main story to be somewhat interesting, with the whole mystery about this weird mark on Fire's body, the mysterious entity who is influencing matters from afar, and the interactions you can have with the various characters. This leads me nicely onto the next couple of points, the dialogue and characters of Bloodlines 2. As this is a narrative heavy game, there's a lot of conversations you can have with a range of personalities. Of course you have the internal dialogue between Fire and Fabian, but there's the former Prince, Lou Graham, who has something going on with her, the current Prince Ryong, who is new in charge but is not someone to take lightly, the overly sarcastic Nosferatu Tolly, who doesn't take anything seriously, the bookworm mad scientist Sophia, who is simply the best, the gilf Mrs. Fawn, and many others. So many in fact that I'll be here all day if I go into detail, so I'll let you play the game for yourself and experience this on your own accord. The voice acting is pretty good too. Bloodlines 2 also has many branching paths with dialogue choices, offering a replayability aspect. I tried to be as nice as possible in my first playthrough, and I definitely want to play this again at some point and try out some of the different options, like being a jerk to everyone instead. From what I played, I liked the characters and their quirks. Speaking of quirks, during the flashback sequences with Fabian, you gain access to Malkavian abilities, but only during the flashback section. This includes the ability to acquire information from inanimate objects or the deceased, masking your identity to extract information from a target, inflicting a target with amnesia, and intruding on a target's thoughts. This can lead to some wacky interactions like talking to a filing cabinet, a pool table, and even a dead cat. Of course, all of these are supposed to help you uncover and recollect information that is critical to Fire's predicament. To wrap up the talk about abilities, it seems like you can only have one ability active per row when you play as Fire, but the ability can be from any clan, assuming you have it unlocked. I was a little confused at first about how the abilities worked, but I eventually figured it out. There's a bar below the abilities icon that represents how much blood will be consumed when it is used, like 2 or 3 points. To recharge, you need to feed on whatever you can. Humans, ghouls, Finnbloods, even fellow kindred count. Once you have drunk enough blood, you can use the ability again. Or you can use one of the item buffs that I mentioned earlier. The clan abilities I had access to during my playtime were this powerful slashing attack called Bladed Hand, this time dilation effect called Split Second, an enemy silencing tactic called Mute, and invisibility called Unseen Aura. Overall, I liked the skills I had access to, especially the Bladed Hand and Split Second abilities. They really did save my bacon on more than one occasion. There's other things in the game too, like a map that you can use for navigation, waypoints and the ability to select waypoints so you know where to go, a codex that gradually builds as you collect trinkets from the world, and a tally of how many collectibles you have found. All of this is to say that Bloodlines 2 wants you to explore. It wants you to look down every alleyway, street and rooftop, and it wants you to care about, well, everything. From the actions have consequences story structure, to the characters both new and old, to the audio and more. On the topic of audio, when I left my haven to explore Seattle for the first time, I heard this song playing in the background. I thought it sounded familiar, and as it turns out, it was. It's the music that plays when you walk around Hollywood in Bloodlines 1. And before I forget, the haven is your safe space to rest when you are finished for a night. Here, take a listen. I have to say, I quite like the homage. The jazz music that plays when you walk around Seattle as either Fire or Fabian sounds good as well. It adds to the atmosphere. However, when in combat, the music is acceptable. Like, I can't say any of it is memorable or stood out to me, but I can't recall it being horrible either. I guess meh is the appropriate word in this situation. Shifting over to other aspects of the sound in Bloodlines 2, when you use Vampiric Insight, you can actually hear the heartbeats of nearby NPCs, which is an interesting feature. I believe you can even see what resonant blood they would provide too by observing the red, pink or purple colour of their hearts. White would just be for health restoration and blood points, right? Then there's the whooshing noise that plays when you grab objects with telekinesis, which is a nice touch. And the last thing I wanted to bring up, which requires circling back around to the Tender ARG, is that Tender is actually advertised in Bloodlines 2. Yeah, if you wait long enough while listening to this radio broadcast, there will be an ad for Tender. After knowing the sort of stuff that happened during the Tender ARG, I can't help but wonder what dark forces are influencing this app. It's also interesting how one of the callers of this radio show gets silenced in real time, like they were stepping too close to a truth the world wasn't ready for, and they needed to be eliminated. Well, I think that's everything I have to say about my 10 hours of playtime of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. All in all, from what I experienced, it's a pretty good game with nice graphics, a pleasant soundtrack and interesting story. However, the combat and world traversal side of things leaves much to be desired. After I'm finished with my first couple of playthroughs and really experienced everything Bloodlines 2 has to offer, I'll let you know in a follow-up video if I think it is on par with Bloodlines 1. My provisional opinion is to say no, but I hope I'm wrong. Also, since this style of video is different from what I normally do, I apologise if my thoughts seem scatterbrained and all over the place. There's a lot of stuff I needed to think about and discuss. Additionally, I think I overused the word ability, like I must have seen about 20 references to the word or its plural. Again, I'm sorry for this. I'm working on limited time to be able to get this video out for Halloween, so the script writing side of things may not be up to a satisfactory standard. The same can be said about the quality of the voiceover. I did the best I could given the time constraints. As always, let me know what you think about the video and if you agree or disagree with my opinions. If you want to support me and my efforts on this channel, then please like, comment, share and subscribe, and check out some of the other videos. I think you'll like them if you've made it this far. Hopefully, it won't take me another year to make the next video, but we'll see. I have an idea about what the next video is going to be about, and it won't have anything to do with vampires or first-person action games, so I hope you'll check it out when it releases. With all of that being said and done, take care out there and have a great day or night. And don't let the bedbugs or vampires bite.